Hello, my name is Kim Reese. I'm a specialist with the Customer Solutions Deployment Team. I have the privilege to introduce your next speaker for this morning, Pat Grace. I have worked with Pat for the last 3 years. He is an incredible leader who always puts his people first and creates a trusting work environment. Pat is a fantastic leader not only at UPS, but also in his hometown of Lansdowne, Maryland, where he and his 2 brothers founded Leadership Through Athletics, also known as LTA. In 2015, I had the opportunity to volunteer for LTA. I was in awe of Pat's devotion to his community. He works tirelessly to pursue LTA's mission of helping Baltimore area kids develop leadership values, enhance their education, and maintain proper fitness through after-school sports programs. As you might guess, Pat is kind, selfless, and generous. He genuinely loves giving back to his community. Inspired by his work with LTA, his strength, and the promise of his mission, I nominated Pat for the highest honor a UPSer can receive, the Jim Casey Community Service Award. It comes as no surprise that when the 2016 award was presented, Pat won. He is truly devoted to the betterment of his community and is a proud UPSer who loves investing in his people. One of Pat's favorite sayings is the difference between a boss and a leader is a boss says go, but a leader says let's go. In this regard, Pat is a true leader. He inspires everyone who works with him to be better and to make a difference. Now, I am delighted and honored to introduce my director, Pat Grace.
Thanks, Kim, for your kind introduction. And thanks to the Customer Solutions Group for inviting me. Today, I want to talk about 2 men. Both men are named Pat Grace. One Pat Grace held different values from the Pat Grace who stands before you today. A younger Pat thought he knew how to manage people. He thought he knew where he was going and how he would get there. But the young Pat Grace got a reality check and a second chance to be a better person. I'm here today to tell you his story. At the management conference in March, I received the 2016 Jim Casey Community Service Award for work in my hometown of Lansdowne, Maryland. I'm humbled to be mentioned in the same sentence as Jim Casey, knowing that 430,000 other UPSers are doing great work in their communities. The Casey Award suggests I changed Lansdowne for the better. The truth is, Lansdowne and my community involvement, more than anything else, changed me. It changed Pat Grace for the better. Never tell me change is not good. I'm living proof that a man can walk through the world for years with his eyes wide shut and then clearly see what he couldn't see before. And yes, be better for it. The story begins with my dad. Dad ran 2 successful businesses and raised 8 kids in Lansdowne, our blue-collar town just outside of Baltimore. My parents have lived there for the past 86 years, and I still live nearby today. My dad was one of a kind, a man who always put the needs of others ahead of his own. When someone in Lansdowne had a flat tire, Dad got the call. Then he got the jack. He was on speed dial for any neighbor seeking a helping hand, a little encouragement, or a word of advice. Deep down inside, I felt like people took advantage of Dad. I never understood why he never, ever said no. Only now, decades later, do I truly appreciate the humility of a man who understood the power of investing in people. Dad showed me, without ever saying a word, how investing in others is actually the best way to invest in yourself. That's the primary task of a leader, bringing out the best in people. But it becomes nearly impossible when people question whether you even care about them. People would run through a wall for my dad. When young Pat first started at UPS, nobody would run through a wall for him. That's because I treated people like stepping stones. a way to get to where I ambitiously wanted to go. That's hard for me to confess. My results were always very good. But looking back, I'm not proud of how young Pat led, or even worse, intimidated people. How foolish was I to think that myself mattered most in life? It's fair to say in my first 20 years at UPS, people saw me as intense, in it for myself. Then, thank goodness, something happened. In the early 90s, senior leadership sent me to the south side of Chicago on a UPS urban internship. The assignment took me away from UPS, my home, and my family. That assignment turned out to be life-changing. It really opened my eyes and unlocked my heart. Young Pat, that arrogant manager who thought he knew everything, lived for 30 days in a Catholic rectory in the heart of the worst urban poverty and violence I had ever seen. I met teenagers who couldn't read or write, who dropped out of school, who had a revolving door in and out of jail. Carjackings and drive-by shootings seemed ordinary. I held several crack babies in my arms, babies less than a month old, going through major drug withdrawal. I spent nights with homeless people, thankful to get one hot meal and a safe place to sleep for a day. In that unlikely place, it hit me like a ton of bricks that many children are born into lives of abuse and neglect, lacking a father figure or a role model to explain the importance of education, right from wrong, and hard work. Nobody was investing in these children. How could these kids understand the concept of future when they struggled to simply live through one tough day at a time? This experience prompted young Pat to ask this probing question. What if I tried my dad's approach to life? What if I started in the workplace by investing a little care in my community of UPS employees? After all, isn't UPS a community too? After that Chicago experience, I grew as a father, a husband, and a UPSer. I started to see myself growing as a leader with this simple thought. If we want our people to support what's important to us, we must understand what's important to our people. One early success stuck with me. I was challenged with a young man who was on my team. He was a person that did not follow rules or work as a team player. He was a very poor performer and had a negative outlook. It would have been easy to terminate him. Instead, I tried investing in him. I took him aside, asked him how I could help. It turned out that he lost his home. He was struggling to keep his kids in school. He felt he let his wife and family down, and he even worked a second job. It was the low point of his life. I thought this person would benefit from a job change in my group, a fresh start with new skills. UPS helped to get him back in school. We set up a system to track his performance, but our chats were always about life, very little about the job. And it worked. He built up his confidence at work and at home. He became a productive and loyal employee. The past 10 years, the same approach has improved many situations at work and in my community. That's the power of investing in people. Isn't turning around the life of an employee, preferably to simply firing him? Isn't that the way we'd like to be treated? The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. You can't separate business and people. They're one and the same. Unfortunately, this great truth I learned very late. Real leadership starts with taking care of people and empowering individuals. Everything else will fall into place. These days, Pat Grace doesn't need to be the smartest guy on the team. He doesn't need to make every decision or take credit for team victories. The younger Pat would hardly recognize the person that I've become. It wouldn't surprise you that after my Chicago journey, I also wanted to do more in Lansdowne. We needed help. We'd been left behind by the times. In 2000, my Catholic grade school closed. My Catholic high school closed in 2010. The successful 50-year family business my dad sold in 2000 fell into bankruptcy. It was now an ugly, boarded-up building surrounded by weeds and trash. And my parents lived on the opposite side of the street. Once on a ramp to American Dream, Lansdowne was now a dead-end street. Even today, just 63% of our kids graduate from the 8th grade. Crime, drug use, and unemployment are high. Still, my brothers and I felt we could make a difference. In 2004, we started buying buildings and restoring homes and businesses. Best of all, we built a nonprofit organization called Leadership Through Athletics. Our mission is to develop today's youth into tomorrow's leaders. We give teenagers refuge from unforgiving streets. Rather than looking for ways to fill their time, they're playing basketball, learning the fundamentals of a social game and the value of teamwork. I run basketball leagues and camps on Saturday. And sure, I talk about the sport. I love the game. But it also gives me a way to stress the importance of leadership and education. You know, my dad was really on to something. Investing in people is the antidote to what often feels like an endless cycle of despair. Here's what I mean. My LTA work hasn't just helped Lansdowne kids and seniors. It's made me a better leader and a much better man. It turned out by investing in my community, I was really investing in Pat Grace. Honestly, nothing I've ever tried was as hard. But nothing was ever so rewarding either. You understand when you see a young man who could easily be in jail or worse show a bunch of kids how to shoot a basketball. Or when you see a senior who could be home alone in a dark room with a TV, now walking laps at LTA with a big smile and a best friend. A few years ago, my family's home flooded. As Mom cleaned out the basement closet, she pulled out this huge box filled with dozens of awards. They all belonged to Dad. Each recognized some work he'd done in the community. I never even knew. He didn't put a single one on the wall. He didn't need to. The fulfillment of those around him was his greatest validation. My wife Kelly and I have also learned the great rewards of investing in people right in our own home. Our two youngest kids, both adopted, taught us over the last 15 years what making a difference in someone's life really means. I am confident for every ounce of perspiration I invested in our kids and in the good people at UPS and into the young minds and old bodies in Lansdowne, I got back a ton of inspiration. I'll close by sharing a simple poem that sums up what the new Pat believes. 100 years from now, it won't matter what car we drove, the size of the house we lived in, how much money we had in the bank, or what clothes we wore. But our world just might be a little better because we were important in the life of a child or a senior. Thanks for listening to Pat Grace's story, and thanks to UPS, Jim Casey, and my dad for the greatest lessons of my life.